the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing.
Welcome to another episode of Tough Talk Tuesday. As always, I'm your host, Lucas Biggers. Alongside me, I got a little bit of everybody. Here we got James, Sakura, Rob. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Hey, just trying to get back into the groove of things.
For sure. Let's just jump right into it. Denny Garcia made his debut here at 154. What was your guys' take on it? I think he did what he needed to do, and he did look slightly better than what I expected. But is my hopes for him at 154 changed after this fight? Hell to the no. I think he still does not belong at 154, but I want you three to discuss it with me as well.
Well, me personally, I was happy to see Danny looking like Danny at 140 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how he used to be when he was at that lower weight class, that same type of skill level. My only thing is, as Harrison brought up, like he was just like, this is two welterweights fighting each other, at 154. What's going to happen when he's fighting a real 154 pounder? And also, I just want to know, where was all that energy when he was at welterweight? Why wasn't he performing to that level? He let go of his hands and entirely, like a whole much, way more than he does when he was fighting at welterweight. And I was just like, I wanted to see that then. The fight against Keith Thurman and Sean Porter could have been, different had we seen those type of letting his hands go like we saw in this fight. My only question now is, was it that Benavidez was underperforming that much in order for Danny to look that great, or was Danny really that great and Benavidez just didn't have that skill level? So we're still like, with a question mark at 154.
No
we
sound
can't
there.
hear you.
For sure, and I agree. I think he threw some great combinations, stuff that, like you said, we didn't see at 147. So, Robin James, does he stay here, or did he test the waters and say, maybe I should stick it out at 147? Do you think he's going to go back? Do you think he's here to stay at 154?
He stays at 154. He's talked about it, and the broadcasters brought up the fact that Tony Harrison was there. I think that'd be a nice fight. And there's a couple other 154 pounders in the audience and licking their chops. But to answer your question, Sakura, I think the fact that he was, as effective as he was, throwing the combinations and really stepping it up, was his competition level just wasn't there. I got nothing but praise for him in his performance, but I just don't see Jose Benavidez as a real top contender at 154. And they're both 154 now. Let's face it, that's where they are. They're not going back down. But I'm happy to see Jose Benavidez doing a bit better than he did in his last previous fights, where he was really slow and didn't really show the skills. The guy's got a great jab, and he doesn't use it very often. He doesn't box very well. And he plods along at his opponent, kind of like Andre the Giant. It's damn, put something in your step, and he's very heavy on his feet. And he's got punching power, and he's got speed, and he's got some head movement, but keeps centered when he punches, and he does a lot of things. You know what he does? He just needs a new coach. Plain and simple. Just needs a new coach, and if he's going to do anything at 54. Garcia is well on his way to mix it up with a upper tier of the 154 division. I think he'll do okay.
I mean, if you ask Benavidez, he won that fight. Rob?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Talk about that card.
I mean, the only thing I say is, like, who instead of where is Danny headed in that division as far as opponents, it's also a question as to what can Jose Benavidez accomplish at that division. I mean, who's going to be a target, or who's going to be a match for him when he is performing or underperforming what expectations have been for him? And it's I mean, I know he's had a serious injury before, and it did affect his ability to move around the ring. We understand that, but he has to have another answer for defense besides just doing the earmuffs, because that's one of them pet peeves that I even have when I'm watching a fight, and I'm like, you are like totally not in the position to fire off a jab or a punch with those mouse ears, firmly planted in front of your face, and yet we keep continuing to see him do that. And it was a lot of frustration as well, guys. I mean, you guys saw him at several points doing things that let everyone know, instead of especially Danny, that there was something that was making him uncomfortable.
Well, the one thing I noticed is that he says like, no, 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 you didn't hurt me. What that's telling the judge is, yes, 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 you got rocked.
Yeah, you just got hurt.
Yeah, I don't even know why fighters still do that. You would think at this point it's kind of a giveaway, but yet they still want to do it. And it's common. That's the thing. It's weird to me. Like, if anything, you can see Golovkin kind of acknowledge even that they were hurt, but it's even more intimidating than them saying like, "No, you didn't get me."
Right. But then he was doing the hunching. Remember, he had periods where he was doing the like little macho man hunch type thing.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot of, he was wearing the frustration. And I mean, that's another thing that, as James mentioned, trainers do, try to tell you like, hey, never telegraph what you're really thinking. And he was doing that, so it was just making Danny more and more confident as the fight went on.
Rob, been quiet.
You know what?
Why does it always do that? It freezes
Every time.
when people start to talk and say something. It freezes.
It's James or it's Rob.
Right, that's true.
Oh, okay. We couldn't hear you. What happened? What were you saying?
Are you back? There you go.
Yeah, I said I'm excited to see Danny now at 154 because he actually brings excitement to the division. It was an exciting fight.
Okay, now we lost him all that. Wow.
You both
he
think
does
him
have a
versus
point.
Tony Harrison is going to be a good fight, though.
I
Yeah,
think
well,
so. He's
I
a great
found
boxer.
I found it interesting that he was saying that Tony Harrison was saying Danny, but Danny wasn't saying Tony Harrison, right? He mentioned Lara for a title. Like it looked like he was more interested in securing him, a title or a championship level bout. So he's not going to be chasing Tony Harrison with no belts. It sounded like that was something maybe that Harrison was thinking was possible, but it didn't sound like that was what Danny Garcia was thinking about. I mean, Rob, what do you think?
Well, again, I was excited to see him at 154. I thought he did a hell of a job, and I think he brings excitement to the division. What Harrison is trying to say is that he thinks that he thinks he has the better of the two in that fight. I think Harrison thinks that he can box better than him, and he can be able to beat Danny Garcia, and especially with the weight. But Danny certainly wasn't the bigger man in the fight against Benavidez. He just was the better man. And like you said, he really was aggressive because he wasn't scared. Mm-hmm. So I feel like a fight with Tony Harrison is good.
I mean, it's
I
good.
feel like that fight is going to be a good fight.
Okay.
You keep freezing.
Oh.
He froze again
or
something.
What were you gonna
You-
say? It's good, but what? Go ahead, Lucas.
I mean, it's good, but like you said, it's easier to not be afraid against the Benavidez. You know what I mean? But if I'm going in there against Harrison, you're going to be a lot more timid. That's going to look like a different fight to me.
I don't
know.
think would be afraid of Harrison. Harrison's a good fighter, but I haven't seen a lot of power in him.
He got some pop. I mean,
he's got accuracy. I'll give him accuracy, but I wouldn't say he definitely doesn't have one punch power. In him.
And Lara, though, I mean, Lara's gonna box his head off.
Lara would be a very interesting match. A very interesting matchup because I want to see how good Danny's skills are. Because Lara will definitely test that. Harrison will test that too. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like he's fought at the best division there is in boxing right now, and he's fought the best there. I don't think he's scared of any of these guys at 154.
But at 54, he can take on possibly Brian Castano, who recently lost to Charlo. I think that might be a good matchup. And then there's also this other young man. He's 19-0, 15 KO. Jesus Ramos. Are you guys familiar with him?
Yeah.
He's Abel Ramos' cousin or nephew or something like that. That could be another great matchup. So there is a lot of competition in there for Garcia at 54. This is good. It's all a really positive thing.
Yeah, I think it's a positive thing anytime you get some new blood in a division that really has talent that fights each other. I mean, that is one of the divisions that I consider the best because we really do get to see the best fighting the best. And we know the pecking order because they do fight each other. And, he's got to know, like, this ain't like the welterweights where you can pick and choose more so who you want to fight. These guys are fighting each other at 154. These boxers, they ain't scared of anybody in the division. And after seeing Danny, I don't think he's scared to fight anybody in the division. But it's just a matter of, do you really have the power to, cause some damage at that weight class? And we don't have to figure out what about his chin though, because his chin was on point. Danny, it is like remarkable how he's able to show how much of a chin he does have, even though that sometimes it's not a great thing when you need your body to tell you you've had enough. It also is just like kind of like, wow, maybe he can take this power at 154.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And he called out Thurman. Now, would Thurman be back at 147? Are they going to fight at 154?
That was an indicator to me that, Keith is thinking about moving up, right? That's what it sounded like to me. Because if Danny is saying I'm not moving back down, and then he's talking about a possible rematch with Thurman, I mean, the only thing that all fans can derive from that is, there's a possibility we're going to have a couple of these welterweights, prize fighters, top fivers that's going to move up in weight.
Right. Well, Thurman's not doing much at welter. I mean, he's not fighting Crawford.
Right.
He didn't fight Spence.
Right.
He's had his bouts, but maybe it is time for him to do the George Jefferson.
I like that reference. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Garcia, I mean, maybe it is time for him to move up because he has pretty much fought everybody that's not named Bud. At least that's on the A side, the elite side of what you would call now. I'm sure there's some contenders coming up he hasn't, but he loses to all the ones that are, the elites of the division. So, I mean, let him try his hand at 154, and maybe this will make up his mind if he wants to continue fighting at all.
Yeah, ultimately he could fight because he's in the PBC universe. He's well positioned, so he could potentially take on Sebastian Fundora. Might be a pretty nice fight.
I think maybe he does hang him up somewhat early because, I mean, he still has his wits about him. He can still be a good broadcaster and still be around the sport, making money with the sport.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to remember, which I actually didn't remember until after the fight, but that a lot of these boxers, when they fight at 154, that were welterweights, It's because in the amateurs they really were fighting in the 150 zone. Like they only came down during, when they started their professional career. So some of them are used to or have some experience fighting with the additional weight.
Very good.
That's true.
All right, let's switch topics here and sure, go ahead, James. Go ahead.
Just to interject one time.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a judge in this fight with Danny Garcia. And,
yeah, I'm surprised I skipped over that.
We call him out on the show. 6-6. GTFO. 6-6. I scored it a generous 10-2. And
that's generous.
That was really generous. I had to say that too.
It is. I gave him the 4th round because he threw some punches, and I could see where this fight was going. So I thought, I kind of want to keep it competitive, at least on my scorecard. 11-1 is fair. 10-2 is generous. 6-6.
Yeah. So guys, what are you 3? I don't care which. Does that mean actually that maybe sometimes when you're getting hit and you're pretending to be hurt and you're saying no, maybe somebody is buying that? Because what else could they be saying? I don't understand that. That should be a 10-2 at the maximum on everybody's scorecard, even somebody that doesn't know the sport. How does that happen, Rob?
You have to look at the history of the judge. From what I understand, this particular judge has a history of calling BS fights.
We need to stop this shit. I'm tired of the better man won, okay? Anybody who's listening, please write to your state commissions, okay? You got to get this stopped. But mainly this was Nevada, right? I can't even remember.
No, New York.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Oh, because, James, what you're talking about is, it was absurd for sure. But I was more upset about the Barthélemy fight against Gary Antoine
previous
with the early stoppage from the referee. In New York, we all know that is, that they've been told if there's any, suspicion of any type of CTE or brain damage during the fight, concussions, to stop it early if necessary. But I don't feel myself, speaking for myself, and how Barthélemy walked over to his corner without tripping or anything and turned around and followed his directions. I just didn't see the need to stop the fight at that point, especially when he still had a possibility of winning. He had actually shaken up Gary Russell Antoine a couple of times in the fight that I saw before the stoppage. So I felt that. Yeah, so I felt that he had a fighting chance, but the key word is fighting. He had to be allowed to fight. And and I gotta give a shout out to the trainer, which is Orlando Cuellar. I mean, he told him the truth, like you just cheated the fans out of what was turning out to be a great matchup. And we didn't see how far or how good Antoine Russell was doing against someone that had experience, like Barthélemy. Plus, it meant a lot to Barthélemy because he's trying to regain some steam in his career. So it really was a bad stoppage to me, and I had to bring that up once I remembered. But the judging, of course, that I don't know how you come up with that particular scorecard.
It's insane. But the thing with Barthélemy is he's always been a very defensive fighter, and I think that what happened in this fight is that Gary Antoine Russell brought something out in him that made him really brawl, because he lit up Antoine Russell at the end of the 2nd or 3rd round. A couple of times he landed some good shots, and he's an experienced fighter. So I think I agree, we all got robbed out of a good fight. And
also he's back with that trainer, because he at the beginning of his career he was with Orlando Cuellar, and then he stopped, and then it just now announced that he started the training camp back with him for this fight. So he could possibly end up getting better than what we saw.
And then, right quick, did you guys watch the heavyweight bout before that? Was Kanaki?
No.
At Konaki.
Um,
Oh my lord! And plus, what's
ugh,
his name? Demarizian. Oh my god! I think that's probably
yes.
one of the best fights I've seen in a long, long time. The punch count was insane because that's what Konaki does. But he got outlasted in this particular bout. His opponent, Ali Demarizian, was just insane.
Yeah,
He took a lot of blows, and
Babyface. I didn't like seeing Babyface get. I think he took a lot, and I
Mhm.
think he gave out of steam early. But to be honest with you, if I had to choose one of those boxers, it's just like I felt like I was looking at the same boxer.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
they
but
both, yeah, like there was nothing that made me feel like one was so much better than the other one, other than one had better stamina that night.
sure. Well,
Um,
Konaki opened the fight throwing. I want to get this right. I think it was 115 punches in the first round.
yeah,
That's
and that would tire you out, right? That tired him out.
yeah.
That's
His
unheard
pace.
of for the heavyweights.
I mean, when you're
His
That's
doing
unheard
something
of.
like that, you got to make sure to get him out of there though, because you ain't gonna
yeah.
have nothing left down that fight.
Well, no, he
Mhm.
landed a lot of solid blows. Took a few, just wasn't enough. But I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this fight. I want to go back and watch it again and again.
Dang,
Yeah.
James, you want to see some brawling? I mean,
So
you don't talk about the brawl fights. You're always
yeah,
talking
no,
to us about the skill level,
yeah,
the
no,
skills for
this
fights.
I really really liked this match,
Yeah.
and I was hoping that at some point it was a possibility way back when Andy Ruiz against Konaki, and that would have been a
Yeah.
slugfest simply because I don't think that's going to happen at this point. But
Yeah.
just
A
I
tune
was
up,
just
maybe.
blown. I was just blown away by this match. Loved it
It
for
was very
heavyweights.
entertaining, but it's also kind of sad because I think a lot of people had the hopes that Kaunaki was going to be this star, this Polish heavyweight champion, and I think Saturday night that flame got extinguished.
Pretty much,
Yes,
it
but
was a
it's
do or
so
die.
bittersweet because, like James is saying, I mean, he was breaking records with heavyweights as far as the
Mhm.
punches landed for a round and for an entire fight. I mean, his fight with Areola broke records, so I think he shouldn't have went in with the mindset that he was going to break that record because that just added, unneeded pressure as well as ended up making him exert all his energy and not
Mhm.
spread out his energy throughout the fight.
For sure, and he can still be very entertaining. He can still make a lot of money. He can still get a lot of fans. But I think as far as championship hopes, unless there's some kind of vacant belt, I don't see him really competing for it at this point.
Right.
He's kind of replaced Areola, entertaining, hard hitter, and unfortunately, just he couldn't get over that hump. Let,
Yeah. That's a good synopsis, I guess.
let's switch topics a little bit. Talk about something I'm sure we're all wanting to. Sarcastically, Jake Paul versus Rahman Jr. This fight fell through. You got both sides pointing the finger at each other. Who is to blame? You guys want to talk a little bit about it? Who wants to lead off?
Oh boy. I mean, I don't even know where to begin because when you investigate and you're reading all these different articles, you're seeing videos, from the opponents, and Ramen is basically saying, yeah, I didn't make the weight, but they knew I wasn't going to make the weight. And they didn't give me a chance to finish losing the weight. It's just like, okay, so backtrack a minute to where you said, yeah, you never was going to be able to lose that weight. You know what I'm saying? Like, so was this a viable fight anyway? And I just feel like they might have rushed their decision to replace Tommy Fury on the card with, like, the first person they could think of and thinking that it would work. And it's like, why were you trying to have this guy drain himself to get down to that weight class? There's other opponents out there that could have been making a match with him fairly easily that's closer to the real weight. So does this mean that there's an indicator that Jake Paul's team isn't really interested in him growing and building his career, but more interested in securing wins so that they can just make more money. And I hate to say that because I had really a lot of hopes that Paul was taking this seriously and trying to gain, some real boxing skill level with the team he had hired and the things that he's done to try to, increase his knowledge of the sport. I felt that now I'm not as excited about, promoting or supporting his career unless I see some major changes in his opponents, and well, I guess it's not just good enough to have a boxer, right? Like, I'm thinking that you need to really make it where you're trying to get someone to help build your skill level. um I feel like Top Rank is really good at that with their matchmaker. They're getting someone that the person, if they're as skilled as they say they are, they should beat. However, it's someone that's going to give them some work. And I think that's the type of opponents that Paul should be taking at this point.
Right. And that was the thing. I always wanted to fight real fighters. I don't want to see any more celebrities, especially when you're getting trained, by the high caliber trainers that he has been. There's no point in just keep knocking out, basketball players and stuff. Fight somebody real. And I thought we were going to finally get that. And then, of course, all this stupid stuff happens and we're right back where we said we were with Jake Paul. So does he really want the fight, or is it something that, Rahman really did fall through? I mean, this is your sparring partner. You knew what he walks around at. You knew if he was going to be able to drop those 15 pounds. I mean, you knew, right? So was this even a fight from the jump, like you said, Sakura? I don't know.
But, yeah, it really makes you question it.
Another thing I don't completely understand, don't get me wrong, like, I respect the New York Commission for trying to manage him to do it safely, drop those pounds safely. But at the same time, you got somebody who's 5-0 in exhibitions. So really, against a pro fighter, he might as well be 0-0. This might as well be his debut against a heavyweight. You might as well let him lose the weight however he sees fit, just as long as he can come in. You know what I mean? As long as he can make the weight, what's it matter? At least Jake Paul will get that little extra incentive that he's drained. But
my question is that I think that they were scheduled to fight at 200, correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a heavyweight, so what does it matter? If you're a heavyweight, you should show up at 205 or 285. Is he a boxer or is he not a boxer? Or is he going to have his own set of rules?
Own set of rules.
That's the issue, James. Exactly. They have a very, very interesting problem with Paul. And given the fact that he says he wants to be a light heavyweight champion and a great in the sport, but he's not fighting any light heavyweight fights. And why is Showtime backing and allowing this to even happen and go forward with this crap?
Because
it's money.
That's what I'm telling you.
It's a clown show, but it makes money.
That's why it's a very big problem for them, because they have to get names on the roster, so to speak. They have to give him names that people will want to keep watching, and they have been watching him, and that's why he's intriguing. But that's what poses the problem. If you're gonna take it serious, you need to fight a real boxer, and these guys that are at his level right now, you're not going to get the names. You're not. So because it's not going to be a big show that like they wanted to, it's not going to be a huge pay-per-view event like they wanted to, then that's why we keep getting these these quote-unquote pop-up fights for them.
And that exactly extinguishes everything that everybody's saying, oh, he's bringing eyes to the sport. No, you're making it worse. You have people that were pairing to fight, people that had money, people that had a lot of stake into this, and now they're not getting anything, And yes, he did help Serrano with his other fights, but what did you just do to her now? That whole card might get canceled.
It did.
It did.
There you go.
It's not even a reschedule at this point.
It's a dead deal.
Yeah, so how are you helping? You're not. Take the cruiserweight, right? Take the cruiserweight fight, and then you guys would be set. There was somebody waiting to take it. Somebody 7-0 or something like that, right?
Yeah, there was
some
a guy,
backup plan, and
Alan
they didn't even bother
Belcher.
with it.
Yeah, there's a guy named Alan Belcher that has some experience in MMA. He has experience in let's see, bare knuckles, and he has like 6 fights in boxing. So it would have been a situation where they would have been on more of an even playing field, like the careers would have been similar. So I think that would have been a great choice to see exactly, if Paul can handle this guy with some boxing experience, but has disciplines in other sports too, so that it's not an uneven situation with Paul having those exhibition fights. I mean, somebody like that would have been great. I don't know if this was all planned out. It just seems like it's so foggy as to why it was canceled. I don't think it was right to have it where the professional boxer is having to be scrutinized and go through all these hoops with weighing himself every week and all this,
Right.
etc., etc.,
Right.
when the person that's not yet professional because they haven't fought a professional boxer, not because they don't have the documentation, so don't go there with me. But because you haven't actually fought a professional boxer, you know what I'm saying? You're not making it easy for people to believe in you and support you. It's a situation where I was rooting for him. I really was, when I saw him get that, nice training team and really, work hard at being in the proper shape that a boxer would be in. And then the Amanda Serrano Katie Taylor fight that he helped orchestrate, that also was, something that was giving him points for me. But then when you start looking into this fight and the fact that he is like really honed in on this Tommy Fury situation, that also is like red flags for me too. Why would you continually want
Yeah, let
to
it
fight?
go.
Yeah, somebody that's been like canceled on you twice and now can't get in the country for other reasons. Why would you consistently continue to hone in on him?
And that makes me think that Tommy Fury has already agreed to something, if you know what I'm saying. Now,
There's that.
he's yeah.
You forgot the wink. You're supposed to
uh,
say, if you
I,
know what I'm saying, wink, wink.
ain't no wink. I think I don't even need to wink because at this point in this sport, look. I was actually talking about Jake Paul. I actually got into an argument with somebody that apparently knows Jake Paul. They said, "So you're going to accuse my friend of wire fraud and all this other stuff, right?" And
Uh,
it was kind of a long conversation. And then I said, "Well, maybe I would think differently if he didn't buy somebody a Rolex before a fight and then knock him out." And after that, he just stopped replying to me altogether. I mean, look, what do you think that is? That's a blatant offer. You know what I mean? Come on.
That's
Let's
pay to play.
yeah, let's not twist it. It is what it is. So, these people can come at me all they want, but yes, I've seen legitimate fights set up, and this is far from legitimate. I am so frustrated with the Jake Paul scenario. I'm not even blaming it all on him because from the sound of it, Rahman was just trying to also squeeze what money he could out of Jake Paul. Do not get me wrong. I understand, this kind of fight doesn't come all the time. You have to make the money as you can make it. And
right.
this is one of the times that you are going to be making the most money that you did, just as Woodley. You got to milk these things. And I think that's what this was. It was a heist. He was heisting the fight, saying, I'm going to wait this off, see what I can get out of him. Let's try to make it even bigger. And then he was going to try to, be 215 and knock him out still, which he probably would have knocked him out, even if he could make weight.
Right. I
But
mean,
that's where we're at. I mean,
we're at that point, but at the same time, like, we have to realize, like, these boxers, like you're saying, Rahman had to take that opportunity. Um, he still gained a lot because now we know that there is a Rahman Jr. out there that is a professional boxer. When I had no clue beforehand. Hello,
Mhm.
like he's already winning. He's
yeah, but
winning because people know him. So the next time he gets in the ring and he has a bona fide professional bout at Bridgerweight, is what he said that he likes to say, he stays in that zone. So, if that's the case, we at least know, even though the fight fell through, he still got that free exposure that comes with a Jake Paul. So he's not entirely not gaining anything from this cancellation.
I mean, I'm sure he's got some follows and a little bit of fandom has picked up, but I think a lot of it was bad publicity. And I know they say all publicity is good publicity,
Right.
but in this point, it looks like you are the unprofessional one in this, vicinity here in this fight. So if you're coming off unprofessional when you're the one that's 12-1 against a guy who's really never even fought a box before, that looks very bad upon you.
The only thing I can add,
was it designed to make him look bad if he didn't make the weight when
That's true.
I believe him when I totally believe his video. I believe what he was saying was the way that he sees it. I'm not doubting that. My only thing is, you're telling us that you didn't make the weight. Why would you sign a contract saying that you would lose the weight if you knew from the beginning you couldn't make the weight?
Okay, I didn't see the video. But
I sent you the video.
Did on what?
WhatsApp.
Maybe I did watch it.
You remember he was saying he basically was saying like they didn't give me a chance. He's like, who cancels the fight when you don't make weight by 10 pounds? You usually just get a bonus or you give up something.
Being fined per pound.
Right.
Mm-hmm. The fights were super stiff in this one, and he never really had a chance from the get-go to negotiate this. He was offered a contract, and it was non-negotiable.
Right. And I agree with you, Shakura, but again, my issue, and I'm going to keep stating this, you're fighting on Showtime pay-per-view at that. The fight card was $59.99 for the whole pay-per-view event. I expect you to be fighting on Showtime. I expect you to be fighting an actual fight in an actual boxer in an actual division, period. Why are we getting this? Why are we getting this quote unquote shit show? And then it gets canceled like this. Why is Showtime allowing it? I wouldn't back him. I wouldn't put my name on it. He can continue to go fight on Thriller if that's even still out there.
You make an excellent point too, Rob, because you know what? When you said you hit that, like, why would you scenario? It's like maybe Showtime is requiring you to fight professional boxers. Because before he was never in a hurry to fight professional boxers. He was fine with the celebrity bouts, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes in. Yeah. I think there was a lot of that with HBO too, is like, we will pay you this amount of money for this many fights, but we're going to have a say in at least somewhat of who you fight. It has to be approved through us. And I think a lot of those aren't going to make that with Showtime. Steven Espinosa's, he's pretty smart. He's going to want, some of the more competitive fights for Paul and try to push him. He didn't want something that's going to look set up and feel set up. I mean, if anything else, he's going to try to get it as competitive as possible. But I don't know how well that's going to work out for Paul or how much he may want that.
Right, but he wanted that money and he accepted those terms, just as James was saying. Rahman accepted the terms for his contract. So if you expect to, have all the praise and get the coins that were in that deal, then you got to fulfill your end of the bargain.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the contract was written. There was something that was very unfeasible there. There's a degree of invisibility there, and basically what happens there is that you can't execute the contract, meaning this is going to, it's bad from the get-go for everyone involved. This is just a shitty business tactic that it occurs more and more because people think they can get over on each other and not letting someone negotiate.
Yeah.
It's exactly what happens. So it doesn't surprise me.
But then it's not only that, guys.
I mean, this is what the A side does. I mean, they always get their way, and especially with Paul, I mean, nobody knows who Rahman was. So, yeah, he can throw whatever he wants at him. I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I mean, it's not only that, but when has a fight been canceled before the weigh-in? You ain't even weighed in yet. So from
Yeah.
what I understand, he got down to 215, 216, or he was trying to get there. And they tried to renegotiate on the contract for it to be at 215, because I guess that's where they felt, the best weight that he'd be able to get down to. And then Paul just goes out and cancels the fight.
Yeah,
So
Rahman basically added, from what I understand, 5 pounds to the original weight, so he tried to make it to 205. And then they realized they were going to make 205 either, and switched it to 215. And at that point, I guess he was just like, no. But yeah, from the sound of it, Rahman was like, I'll take whatever penalties, and they were like, no, we cancel the fight. So then it's
Jake Paul.
Then it's Jake Paul saying
fight.
Rahman closed the fight, when in actuality, I mean, it's a little bit on both sides, obviously, that the fight fell through. Now, do I want to fight somebody another 10 to 15 pounds over what I said either, though? No. So it's, like I said, it's on both. It's on both.
And by the way, the Boxing Commission, New York Athletic Commission, was not in favor. They recommended that Jake Paul not take this fight because it was a professional boxer with an amateur career, and also the fact that he was, really a heavyweight when Paul is not. So maybe it came to a situation too where the Boxing Commission was like, well, we're not going to approve for you guys to fight at 215 anyway. So even if you did agree, we're not going to agree because we didn't even want y'all fighting in the first place.
Yeah.
And this is all speculation, so I'm just coming to my own conclusions on the fact that if they didn't recommend the fight to begin with, I know damn well they wasn't going to be in favor of him being 15 more pounds or 10 more pounds, which means when he really rehydrates after the weigh-in, it'll be even worse.
Yeah. I mean,
so no.
But I have to say, I think we talked this one to death now.
I believe you're right.
Yeah. Let's see. Rob MC. Heavyweights are weight above heavyweight. It's that simple. So for Jake to put a weight to make is stupid. Gotta kind of agree there. He wants everything his own way. Who is fool, eh? People should boycott Jake Paul because he is dragging down the sport. Rob, I think me and you were one of the few that actually think that a lot of people think that he is bringing, eyes and ears to the sport of boxing. I think it's making us all look bad, if you ask me.
Let me tell you what, though. As a promoter, maybe he can bring something to the sport as a promoter now. Because of the notoriety that he's bought, and he was able to give us the greatest women's bout in history.
I'm not debating that.
Promoter.
You got a good idea there, buddy, because honestly, you take a look at it, he could be like a Dana Paul type, but every once in a while he could step into the ring too. You know what I mean? And he could do his little celebrity fight on occasion. It's almost like, promoter stepping down from his pedestal and putting on a fight and going back. Like he could fight what's his name from Matchroom. That'd be awesome. Then just go back to doing promoting. You know what I mean?
The other guy too, the other idiot from Barstool Sports or whatever. I can see that happening.
Yeah, something like that. But speaking of pay-per-views, I really do not think this one was headed in a good direction anyway. And I think also that the Showtime and other people can tell that right away, because a lot of people pre-order these pay-per-views, and I think they were not going well. Which leads me into our topic and our tweet of the week, Sakura.
Yes, pull it up for me. All right, we got Leonard Ellaby from Mayweather Promotions, and he says, it's comical how some media / fans are experts as it relates to these pay-per-views. Most don't have a clue how any of this works, but can tell those who actually know what works. There's probably 12 to 15 people in boxing who actually know. Laugh out loud. My thing with this is like, a lot of fans, we don't know what these pay-per-view numbers really mean, and we know that there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not a pay-per-view is considered successful or not. But what we do know is that it's hitting our purse. We know how much these pay-per-views cost, and it's outside, it's additional to our budgets. So I feel like he might have a point. I've never seen people talk about pay-per-view so damn much in my life, and they have no idea what the hell they're talking about because they've never seen any pay-per-view numbers. I've never seen pay-per-view numbers. Like, it's like insane how many people are all into pay-per-view numbers. The only issue I have with what Ellaby is saying is just the fact that they're the ones that make us interested in pay-per-view numbers by telling us, well, this fight is makeable because the pay-per-view numbers work. This vow isn't matched up because it doesn't make sense. It's not pay-per-view worthy. So it's kind of like an oxymoron where, I don't want to be interested in pay-per-view numbers, but then it's like the powers that be, including LB, they tell us, well, you can't see this particular matchup because the pay-per-view numbers don't work. So naturally, it's making a fan want to be more in it. I'm sorry. It's making a fan want to be more knowledgeable about pay-per-view numbers because we just want to see the matchups.
So Shakur, I'm sorry, but I could care less what Elder B says now in regard it and care less about the pay-per-view numbers. And you know why? Because the second grossing pay-per-view fight in history now is Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. That's why. So that should tell you that people don't know what's involved with the pay-per-view matchups and blah, blah, blah. It's all a crock of shit now. Why? Because it's about the damn money. It's no longer about the sport. It's about money.
I think it hasn't been about the sport in a very long time. Just like we were talking about just from, this past weekend's fight, who had it a draw. There's two reasons to have that damn fight a draw, and neither one of them are good for boxing, right? It's incompetence.
Somebody's getting paid.
It's incompetence, which is being allowed to repeat and repeat with judges over and over again. That's bad on the sport, right? Or it's corruption. And that's already proven. I don't care. Y'all can come at me if you want. Olympics is being put off of the sport of boxing in 2028 for a reason. All right. Tommy Fury's not allowed in the sport or in the United States for a goddamn reason. This sport needs to be cleaned up, but nobody gives a shit, man. It's all just money and it's a celebrity thing now. It's a status. It's not a sport anymore. And it's driving me absolutely fucking insane.
Well, tell us how you really feel, Lucas.
I feel your pain.
Me personally, I think that there are plentiful of people that care. I don't think that we have a lack of concern on this one or a failure to care. I got one of them tickets before. Failure to care.
We got a failure to cover it, though. We have a failure to say anything because anybody that says anything is blackballed. Exactly. Right. That's the big problem is, should you really even care then? Why are you keep putting back in to the corruption? By not acknowledging it, it's just getting worse and worse. And I don't care if your name is Dan Raphael or anybody that's involved in the sport. Nobody says shit. And you're always told as a writer, and I have been, and I'm not going to call the publication out, that I used to work for, to not write about it. You are told that. Why? Because you're not going to be allowed back in. You're not going to be credentialed, and you will be blackballed, right? Which hurts you. And it's all just a big thing. I don't even think the promoter should be able to say who gets in from the news anyway. That shouldn't even be allowed. But then again, I also don't think the promoter should be the one paying the commission. That in itself is already somewhat corrupt, right? There needs to be some other workaround, but boxing in itself, even as its hierarchy is concerned, is completely fucked.
Well, you've always said it, and I'm starting to agree with you now. But the only way to fix it is for everybody to say, I don't want to see that damn fight. I'm not going to watch it. I don't want to see that matchup. I'm not going to watch it.
But that's not what we do. We say, I
Only
don't
way
want
to
to watch that fight. You got the fight.
I think that's what it is more than anything, especially with boxing fans. It's that it's a Saturday night. That's what we enjoy, right? That's a fight party. It's something reason to get together. So if you even like boxing somewhat, you're going to tune in. It doesn't even matter what the hell it is. Rod
Right.
Salka versus Danny Garcia. It don't matter, It does not matter. You're going to tune into
well,
whatever it is. And we're all victims of it because I guarantee you every one of us is also tuned into some shit that probably shouldn't even have been a fight. Probably shouldn't have been signed in the first place. And it had no reason even being sanctioned. But it still went through and it still happened. And a lot of us still watched.
Well, I know
so I
Rob
have a
told us
question
that
now
he
for you,
doesn't want
Lucas.
to. Rob doesn't want to. He doesn't care about the pay-per-view numbers. But how many times have you guys been sitting with someone and they'll bring up how many pay-per-view numbers a certain fighter brought in, especially when it comes to this Bud versus Spence matchup? So, like, I want to know from James and you, Lucas, is the pay-per-view important for you guys to be interested in now, being that it's brought up all the time?
Important, I would say no. I'm not going to speak for James, but important, no. But I think it's a measuring stick for how big your fan base is and how willing they are to watch you, right? Which also helps put a measuring stick on, are you the A side or are you not the A side, right? So if you're constantly selling pay-per-views and they're, 500,000 mark, which is unheard of now, I mean, that's amazing. So yeah, you're probably the A side. A while ago, though, it would really only be Pacquiao or Floyd, and they could sell, a million versus anybody pretty much. But we
Right.
are not that era anymore. So a lot of these people have to know if you're selling like 100,000 on a pay per view, nobody gives a shit. Like, it's all the same to me. You might as well just be on regular ass Showtime.
And yes, me, I really don't care about the numbers, but I can tell you this, that if the numbers are really substantial, that gives the promoter, the broadcaster, carte blanche. They can charge more. They can do it more often. They can do it with lesser competition, lesser fighters. Not the A fighters, but the second tier down. And they just get us. They get us good. Like I said before, they got us over a barrel on this one, and
I
nothing's
mean,
changed.
what going back to what Lucas was saying though, you know what I'm saying? The issue with me is we are not in the Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao era. We are not in the Floyd Mayweather boxing professional era. But it seems to me that a lot of people want to still compare his pay-per-view numbers to boxers of today, and it just don't translate. And
Well,
then you
they
have
set this.
yeah, go
They
ahead.
set this. They set this benchmark, and that's what people
Right,
are
but
trying
it's the
to.
benchmarks for that decade and for that, I
Sure.
mean, it's for that period in time. It doesn't necessarily transfer over to a post-pandemic time period.
Hmm.
I
Sure.
mean, and
Sure.
and 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 how are you going to really measure some pay-per-view numbers when we did just come out of a pandemic
Yeah,
in
but
which
these.
so many people weren't even working? How do I compare what this boxer made when they were able to do pay-per-view unaffectedly by any pandemic issues prior? And I got another boxer where they started doing pay-per-view during a pandemic. Like, the numbers are never going to be
You're
comparable to
you're
me.
right.
Well,
You're right. But they
Ah,
continue to
there is
price.
there
They
is proof
price.
in one though. There is proof in one. Look at the Charlo brothers. Right at the pandemic, they set up a double pay-per-view event. Nobody watched it. They haven't been on pay-per-view since.
right. But my point is that fair to judge them and say they're not pay-per-view worthy because they didn't get the sales during a damn pandemic where there was a lot of people out of work? Like, I mean, it's like you're holding them to a standard for a time period that's, as they love to say, unprecedented
Yeah.
times. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's fair either way to judge the boxer based on numbers during that time period and hold them to that for like what, the next 2 or 3 years. you're not pay-per-view worthy because you didn't sell enough pay-per-views during a pandemic. What sense that makes?
Yeah, I don't get that part. You can judge also just by the regular numbers, right? So by
Right.
how many views you got on ESPN, you can say, oh, let's test your waters in pay-per-view and go from there. But it's not also just you. I mean, Canelo, yeah, he's awesome, but you can't sell just Canelo. I need somebody that I think Canelo can't just walk over, right? For you to even pay the $60. So it still does depend on that other, fighter there. So I don't think a promoter can just throw him into pay-per-view and then just take him and never put him in again. Maybe he could slowly build him back up. But again, I don't think a lot of promoters are putting a lot of effort into this anymore because they still have a Fox that they can throw them on, right?
Yeah.
Give them a knockout reel highlight,
What
right?
else?
Give them a tune-up. Let everybody see them like knock somebody out with their eyes open, something devastating, and spark some interest, and then pull them over to Showtime. You judge their numbers, try to get another decent win, and then boom. Then you test
Lucas,
out the pay-per-views, but instead they just kind of put them up there and see how it goes.
right. So
Right.
Lucas, two things. Number one, that formula isn't being used consistent enough. And it should be. You should be testing the waters on a Fox. You should be using that. Because why the hell else would they even have made that television deal if they weren't going to put
Right.
fights on
It's
more consistently?
That's what I don't understand, dude. It's not being used. Fox is
That's
an
number one.
amazing
Yeah.
network. Yeah, it's an amazing network that is free, that you're going to get so many eyes if it's promoted correctly, and it's not being used.
And my second question to you, and you're going to love this one. So it appears that DAZN has now the television rights for Fury versus Usyk. Is it going to be on pay-per-view on DAZN, or are
You
we
mean
going to get
Joshua
it for
Usyk?
free? Joshua, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
got
Okay, so
I
we
was-
Oh, I
I
got
was
to say
confused.
Fury.
I was
Oh,
confused for a
excited.
second.
I got too excited to ask you this question. I got too excited.
From
No,
what I understand, it's
Joshua-
DAZN, but it's not pay-per-view DAZN. It
Okay.
doesn't matter to me because I ain't paying for DAZN anymore. Look, they went against their whole marketing thing. I understand.
Shakur, he's gonna buy it. Watch. He's
I
gonna
ain't
buy
buying
it
shit.
for this watch.
well, he gonna
Fine.
be watching it. I don't know if he
I
gonna buy
will
it, but he's
watch
definitely
it,
gonna
but
watch
I
it.
ain't paying for it. Look, DAZN, I understand why they did what they did, right? You tried and you did, all this acquiring of talent, the Canelos and Golovkins, and you just threw all that money at them. And then you were like, oh man, we're not getting the subscribers that I thought we would get.
But you know why,
And-
Lucas? Because they didn't match none of them up.
I agree. And that's not my fault. That's not your fault. That is not the public's fault. They got to eat that. All right. So I don't think DAZN's going to be up around too much longer anyway. From under, that's just me.Maybe I'm wrong, but
I mean,
I'm
guess
I'm
what?
unwilling.
I mean, if
It's
he's
moved
saying
up
the
twice.
zone,
Right? Two price ups, and then now they added pay-per-view too. I mean, I'm done.
So now,
I mean,
what is the
you
deal
got
then?
some Canelo fans that's gonna watch regardless, so they do have that, trick in their bag right now. As long as they don't piss him off, they have that trick because there are a large group of Mexican fans. They support Canelo no matter who he fights. Now the problem is, for me, with DAZN in particular, is that your fighters can't be grown or gain more exposure because your viewers are just those that have subscribed to DAZN. Like, so how are you going to build a Vergil Ortiz when he's stuck on? I mean, we hear more about Ennis Boots than we do Vergil Ortiz when they practically became, welterweights about around the same time, period. So it's just a little, factor in the fact that he's not being exposed to a lot of fans when he's just stuck on the zone, which Bob Aaron calls dead zone, by the way. I thought that was cute. I mean, like, you can't build a boxer if they're just on an app. And then
Right.
I love Vergil Ortiz. Rob, I've been talking about him for years. And it's just like, I know I can't just tell my dad or anybody that's not like a diehard fan to go watch him because they're not buying no damn app.
So you know what the problem is, though, Shakura? The problem is when did it start becoming about more about the networks and not the actual fights? The promoters have actually lost all steam now and are actually in cahoots with the network, and it's all about the network that you're on and not the actual fights. And
Well,
promoters aren't crossing those lines because of the networks now.
I mean, it's
So
a sad situation, but at the same time, it's business. And I really appreciate the distributors, the networks, these people that get us the fights to view. I mean, it takes a lot of money to do these productions. Some of them don't go
Um,
off so well, some of them do, but I mean, it's not all their fault. I just feel like it's an overall situation where people aren't working with each other because they're in competition.
yeah,
And they don't
but
want to
that's
give
the
one
that
inch to another company that's trying to put them out of business, especially
Shakura,
when
that
some have made it perfectly clear that that's what they want to do.
that's the problem to me, though. When you look at DAZN, who is everybody say owns DAZN? Eddie Hearn, a promoter. When you look at PBC and all of their networks, who does everybody says own PBC? Al Heyman, a manager slash promoter. I'll
No,
give
he
you that,
owns it.
Lucas.
I
No,
mean,
he
but they're
owns it.
still
Yeah,
not, that's not a network. He doesn't own a network. We're talking about,
That's true.
no,
Yeah,
but
that's
no,
true.
Showtime
he
owns a
made
network,
he
yeah,
made
but
that's
That's true.
yeah, that's
Showtime
yeah,
correct.
really,
Stephen
Showtime has
Espinosa is
but
Showtime
Showtime.
Boxing, but they're owned by, a different company as well. They have a parent company. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
but
So
when
it's
have
not
you seen a non PBC fight on Showtime? Not in 2 years, probably.
right
Yeah.
because that's who they
That's
decided to partner
contractual.
with.
So that's the
That's
problem.
contractual.
That's the problem.
I mean, but HBO was trying to use that formula of mixing it up and having different promoters, but you see that in the end, that ended up biting them in the ass
They made a business decision to cut boxing. Who knows?
because they couldn't secure more meaningful bouts.
Uh,
That was the real reason.
HBO was like, we're not
I
making
think it
enough
was a
money
little
out of
bit of
this
that, but I
because
And
think
they
it's
said
what
we're not
Lucas is
spending
saying.
more money to
That's
get
the
more
problem.
boxers on
I think it's
scene.
what Lucas saying and what that previous comment said as well.
I got it.
Canelo says he wants
Oh,
300 million. Canelo says he wants 300 million, and HBO and I want to choose my own fights. HBO ain't going for that. HBO ain't putting Rocky Fielding on HBO for a Canelo pay-per-view bout.
Here's the problem, and I agree with Rob and Rob. Okay. Rob, one thing that needs to stop fighters choosing their own fights. The Boxing Council should be choosing the mandatory challenger. The top 10 or 20 should be fighting each other. The main thing is stopping the fighters fighting all arguments over who wants how much money. Some are only fighting once or twice a year. Other belts are missing out with their chances on getting belts. Now, while I agree with you, Rob, I think they try to even implement this. And when they do the mandatories, it doesn't matter because the fighters can just essentially throw away their belt. I don't give a shit about the WBC then, and I'm gonna take this fight that's pay per
That
view.
just
I'm gonna fight Jake Paul over here and make more money.
that just happened recently with
Yeah,
Josh Taylor.
yeah,
Josh Taylor just gave up two of those belts. He's no longer undisputed because he refuses to fight who he's supposed to fight.
yeah. I mean the mandatory only works for so long. You can't force it because at the end of the day, I mean they don't have to listen. This
you
is
say
not like the UFC where there's only one thing or one challenger you have to face or anything like that. You literally can go wherever you want. You can get for a challenge for another title if you don't like WBC's rules, or you don't like the IBF's 10-pound rehydration clause, right? Fuck that. I'm going to the WBA. There's something else you
too
can do.
many options,
Yeah.
right? But Lucas, I was gonna ask what you guys think because you brought up the UFC. Now everybody is like, "Oh, there's too many different, networks and too many different promoters and this that." Can you imagine if boxing didn't have any competition amongst promoters? I mean, if it was like a UFC setup and you just had the one title, the fans would like the one title part, but they would not like not having a say in who you're fighting. And they definitely wouldn't like the pay that was being, offered to UFC fighters, apparently.
Exactly. I don't think a lot of people think about it that deeply. That's basically like boxing just having PBC and nothing else. Like, that's terrible, right?
Yeah, but everyone's under one banner.
Umbrella.
Everyone's in the same league.
Yeah, but
Right, but then you're at the mercy of that one promoter. And if you don't
Sure.
want to fight with that one promoter,
Yeah, 'cause
you're
it's a
not going to
monopoly.
be able to fight in this country. Or if it was Matchroom over in the UK, you wouldn't be able to fight. It's like you just have you're blocked out. So
you might be able to go down to like the minor league. Don't they have like a Bellator or something too? Like you
they
can go
Bellator,
make a
they
lot
started
less
back
money,
up.
a lot less money down there, because a lot less eyes are going to be on you. So
right,
yeah, I mean it's completely different.
So I don't think that would be. I'm just making a point that even though you get frustrated with different, the fact that you have this infighting or the ability not to work with each other, I don't think that it would be necessarily an amazing thing if we didn't have that, because then you're looking at a situation how Dana White runs his UFC program. And there's a lot of negatives for the actual boxers in that, and the actual fighters.
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, we're complaining about something, but at the same time, the opposite wouldn't necessarily be what we would want to see either.
Yeah, but the upside with the UFC is that when they put on a card, it's
they put
worth
on a
watching.
card.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, top to bottom to top, it's all really,
It's
really
loaded.
good action. Yeah, they're loaded.
And
sometimes it's, they got the prelims and they got their pay-per-view, and that's all fine. But you're looking at good bouts where boxing simply does not have that.
Right.
And
the
you wouldn't get that if one person was in control and they didn't have to make good competitive matchups. You forced to watch what they want you to watch.
But that is working for the UFC. So I can't knock that formula, one. And two, you would set it up like you have in pretty much all sports. You have a commissioner, and the commissioner decides, with his team. Of course, you got a team where you have the card makers and all that, and you have a commissioner that says what the final say.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I don't see what's wrong with that.
Boxing's got like 4 or 5 commissioners in that case.
Right. I think the only way you can do it, again, I agree with him. I think there's too many commissioners already. So the only way you can do it, again, and the federal government needs to get involved. And even then, that's only going to be federal. So that's still only going to be with the United States. But anybody who sanctions and wants to fight over here, guess what? If you're the top 10, you have to fight who we say, or it has to at least be cleared within the top 10. You don't get to beat up some Rod Salka who's not, ranked at all. Like, that's one, not safe. Two, why would you even want to do that? Mm-hmm. It's a meaningless fight.
If the government running, it'd be boring as fuck, and it'd be all over the place. Government can't run shit.
And still corrupt.
It'd be a whole lot of taxes. It'd be a whole lot of extra taxes and fees.
We need
the NFL and the NBA, like these are private organizations. They have stockholders, and these companies do well at regulating the sport between many leagues. So I think something more like that would be probably.
So you're saying like PBC actually turning it into the UFC would be more likely than anything else?
No, I'm just saying that it would not necessarily get us what the fans think we want either. I'm saying, like, if you like I don't think that fighters over in the UFC are necessarily happy with the regime over there. You know what I'm saying? They're not getting paid what they feel they're worth or what's been made off them.
Right.
So, like, I mean, you'd have a situation where that was going on. Plus, you would not have anywhere to go. It's kind of like reminding you of when it was just Bob Arum and Don King. Like if Don King screwed you over, you would have to go over to the you would go to Bob. Then if Bob screws you over, then you go back to Don King. Like, there's nowhere to run.
See, that's why I was thinking more of the state regulation. Like, we suspend your license, so you can't even fight until you fight, who we say. So, we're tired of seeing everybody be like, who's Mayweather going to beat Pacquiao or whatever. That could have been implemented a long time ago, and it would have been different. We would have already seen Crawford Spence maybe, but I don't know. I don't think there's any hope for a lot of that stuff. Let's see.
Yeah.
Rob
We
says
just need
we
good
need-
people
we need-
in great
yeah.
positions in
Good
their
people,
sport.
good people, as in the mafia.
No, there's enough of that going on. I think we need good
Well-
people in good positions that have principles and believe in certain things. But they have a hard time in this sport because it is so ruthless. You know what I'm saying? You
Right,
have the right
James.
people, and they
The
soon
mafia-
find out that they don't want to be a part of something so corrupt or something so
James-
ugly.
James is talking about, hey, you don't want to fight who I say you fight? Shoot him in the kneecap. No.
Break his leg. Break his
Break his
leg
leg.
now.
Yeah, he says boxing most likely relegated sport going for the rules are all over the place. I agree. It differs even state to state. I mean, if anything, I would just like to see a unified rule set throughout the world. No 3 knockdown rules, stuff like that. I mean, it's all over the place. No standing 8 count.
Yeah, you want a Geneva Convention type document
right
to help to help rein in the entire world of boxing. Hi,
Right.
Lucas.
Yeah, something needs done. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not holding my breath on that either.
It's
Rob,
it's almost impossible to regulate because it's international.
yeah,
So you have a set of rules in the United States, and people in other countries don't abide by those rules, but it's the same sport. It's potentially the same league.
Right. That's
So
why I
how
said
do
a
you enforce
treaty.
that?
You need something
Yeah.
like a treaty that would go over internationally.
kind of like the Olympics. Shit didn't work out in the Olympics.
No, not like the
Wait,
Olympics.
Boxing is getting the boot.
all right.
They're bringing in breakdancing as a competition. So don't
Good
miss
for
it.
Are you
those dancers.
serious?
Look, when you've been
Yes,
replaced
yes.
by breakdancing, your sport's going under.
Don't miss it. Yes,
You silly,
right.
don't miss it.
Hey, they now got 3-on-3 basketball. That's pretty interesting too.
That is kind of interesting. I did not
Yeah,
know
I like
Rob.
that.
Rob, what kind of rapid fire are we looking at tonight?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No.
Okay, so the
everything I wanted to talk about, we did. I wanted to talk about the everything I wanted to talk about, we touched on. So go ahead, because this stuff you're about to bring up now.
Yeah.
the WBC stuff.
Yeah, go ahead with that. That's the rapid fire.
Well, we're going to be touching probably this on a little bit this week and next week because obviously the convention hasn't happened. The WBC is going to just. When is the WBC convention, by the way? Does anybody know that they're going to be discussing?
It's coming up.
Okay.
So
I
okay.
don't know the exact date.
Yes, but they're going to be discussing.
I know where you're going.
Transgender entering boxing and how they're going to handle this. I kind of want to get your guys' take and see if we can kind of predict where this is going. Do you think this is going to be allowed, or are they going to have certain tests maybe that they have to meet before they're allowed to fight on fight night, such as testosterone levels, such?
I don't think WBC is ready for all that, especially with where the state of Mexico is as a country. I don't think this is something that they're prepared to like take on yet. However, I truly believe that since we're in a better position with boxing because it's one opponent agreeing to fight another opponent. So I believe like if somebody's willing to fight, a transgender person, then the fight should happen. If they're not, then they shouldn't. I mean, I think it's quite simple for this particular sport. Now that doesn't work when you're talking about team sports, obviously. But when it's just like you and another person in the ring with you, it's totally up to you two to decide whether this is something you really want to do or not do.
I got to disagree, Sakura. I don't think it should happen. This is just me, but for me, men and women are always a little different. Okay, I think it's dangerous. I mean, what are we talking like? Is Canelo You know, if Canelo wants to turn to Canela and go into the ladies division, he's going to really hurt somebody. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not just talking about, you know, somebody who wants to be female. We're talking about somebody who's already skilled in the sport of boxing who's turning into female. I don't think that should be allowed at all.
It reminds me of the fight with Franchon Cruz Dezern, who fought another fighter named Alejandra Jimenez. And I'm not pointing out her gender
Status.
in any way.
Right.
Yeah, whatever you want. Thank you. But I saw Cruz Dezern lay some leather on this person and solid punches and did not phase her. After that bout, she tested Jimenez, a Mexican female fighter, tested positive for a bunch of different
Steroids.
yeah, something. I don't know exactly what it was, but I don't recall. I do remember
Growth
reading the article.
hormone, basically.
Okay. And that shows you how dangerous this is, because if a person the size of Cruz Dezern with her expertise in landing punches could not phase this opponent, it is serious. I mean,
well, I have to say,
they
by
really
the way,
regulate
Cruz
that
still
now.
won that fight to me.
Now.
She
For sure.
should have
For
should have
sure.
won that fight. It was
For
a bad
sure.
decision on top of everything else. But thankfully, she got her belt back.
Yeah, because
for
there was
that.
a disqualification there.
Right. My point is, if everybody is doing pads anyway, except for a few, one is doing pads because they are trying to be a different gender. One is doing pads because they trying to cheat. I mean, either way, it's like it's still an even playing field to me. If I want to fight you, and I know that you do have this, you know, classification, and I decide I'm still gonna fight you, and I'm okay with, you know, the fact that you have to have some type of hormone in your system, whether you want to be a female or a male. You have to have some type of you know, hormonal treatments in order for that to happen. It's in your system. So like that's why I'm saying, like, it's not gonna be a whole lot of people that's gonna agree to fight a Hernandez, for example. So you set the rules the way you think the rules should be fair, but in actuality, how many people are really gonna do it? That's where I would stand if it was my organization.
Well,
Because-
I suppose the WBC got nothing to offer this dilemma. I can't.
Yeah, and
see
I
them
don't think
doing
they're
anything
prepared
right
for
anyway.
it. You're right.
It'd be interesting to see what they come up with, but we'll see. I will keep an eye out for it.
Yeah,
Rob?
I mean,
Been quiet, Rob. I want to get
Rob's
your take
like,
about
I
it.
don't want to talk about
Yeah,
this.
you just like avoiding the conversation. but-
No comment. I
There you
have
go.
No
no,
comment.
no,
That's
no.
the
You
best.
got to comment.
That's the best answer
I
yet.
don't.
You
I
can't
have
From
no
Stephen
comment.
A. Smith, you got no
Look,
comment at all.
I can understand both arguments. Okay, period. I have no comment because I understand both arguments. They want to be recognized as a female or male. You know, they want to be recognized as what they switched to, and they feel like, you know, they want to participate in sports. They want to participate in boxing and not be you know, and not be left out, not be discriminated against. So I understand that. But at the same time, you were not born as that. So you do have certain athletic abilities
Structural
and
bone
body
difference.
differences, all of that. You do have differences in it. So I see both arguments, right or wrong. I just don't choose to comment on my opinion about it. But I think I see both arguments. I don't want to comment. I don't want to say.
Play it
Right.
safe.
Who am I? And who am I to say? Anyway, who am I
I
to
mean,
say?
yeah, who are any of us to say? Because that's not any of us. So it's hard to put yourself in that kind of a situation. But
Amen.
I mean, yeah, I mean, if we're trying, I mean, it's a little bit dangerous, I think, for everybody involved. And I'm not speaking just because a man could turn into a woman and then fight in the woman division. I also mean even the women who are transitioning into men, because you're going to have to be taking, steroids or, some kind of testosterone supplement to change over, which means usually those levels can kind of be up and higher. They might be higher than mine. I got low testosterone as it is. So if I'm coming into a fight, somebody who's transitioning may even have higher testosterone than me, be souped up, so to speak. But legally,
Right, for sure.
in this case. So it opens a door that, like Sakura was saying, I'm not sure if WBC or boxing at all is honestly ready for.
And I will say I don't think boxing is the right sport for it. It's
Boxing is
not like
definitely going to be the last sport to handle it because of
it's
the
not
machismo that's
Right, you gotta
embedded
really
in the
fight
it's
process.
not
somebody.
I'm just saying physicality. It's not like it is in soccer. Soccer, I think you can even have a unisex soccer league, and I personally think the women are actually better at soccer than men. So
Yeah.
I mean,
that
depending, yeah.
tennis is another one. I think there's a
I
lot
just
of
look at
women out
it
there
this
that can beat
way. I
tennis.
mean, how many times have we seen males fighting each other and we're like, this fight is so uneven. This is not, this guy here is so much bigger. He's a weight bully, blah, 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 and he's in there. With this guy, nobody has a problem with it. I say, since it is a sport where it is based on both teams having to agree to fight each other, then just let it stand that way. 9 times out of 10, these particular people are they're gonna have a hard time finding opponents.
You're
It's,
right. You're
I
right. I
mean,
don't.
but
I
they're
don't.
still been given their rights to do so.
Even if I agree with you, Sakura, I think again, even if WBC allows it, I don't think they're going to land anything significant. Obviously, I don't think the A side is going to be giving, the people transitioning the big fights because it poses too much of a threat, right?
Yeah, I don't even see them getting a lot of opponents that's B and C level, to be honest with you. But they at least have the right to try to find an opponent. You see what I'm saying? Like it's a
That
personal freedom type thing, but
right.
versus this ain't a team sport. What I'm saying.
That I can get behind you 100%. I do think that they need to they got to regulate it in a safe way, whether that's checking testosterone levels all the way up until the fight, something like that. So if that can be done, I fully back it. But again, it can get dangerous if not watched carefully for sure.
Correct. Which we need to be watching for those safety concerns with all boxers.
No, I think the
That's the
one
thing.
thing that the WBC and some other sanctioning bodies may consider is that they could be in a lot of legal issues or face legal issues if they deny anyone the chance to fight based on their gender.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can think of at the
Bingo.
moment. That's all I
You
got.
think?
That's a perfect bingo. That's a bingo moment. Like, okay.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's a door that's waiting to be opened. Definitely stay tuned to any of our social media at Heavy Bag Boxing to find out how that WBC convention goes. Let's look at a couple more comments here. Rob, any physical sport should not have transgender folk in it. Maybe let them play snooker or darts, but not physical sports. I somewhat see. There was once a male tennis player that was ranked 200 plus, then went as a female in ladies tennis, then ranked in the top 10. Is that fair? Uh, um, it's hard to say. Like I said, I kind of see where you're coming from. Ladies golf, they're going to hit, earlier, right? They hit before. So their tees are closer to the hole. And again, that's for a reason. I mean, I'm not being chauvinistic at all, but it's hard to say anything like that and have it not sound bad. If you know what I mean? But our tee is
You're
further back
good.
because we hit the ball a little bit farther. I say we as men because my ass
Right.
sucks. I probably can't hit shit. Okay. There's women that'll kick my ass in both boxing, I'm sure, and in golf and tennis and everything else. Rob, I'm not going to speak for you, but maybe it's the same for you. So
I mean, I just feel like
So
the
physical
statement he
sports-
made, Rob made it in the beginning. That's something that used to be said about female boxers, and they still do it in certain countries. I mean, Cuba to be one. I mean, the females weren't even allowed to go to the Olympics. Like they just did not, and probably still don't really like. The culture is like against that. Women fighting, they feel like the physicality, they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
So
And-
it's a catch-all where, like, you said it for one, but now you're not saying it for this one, or overall we have to evolve as people.
Right. And I don't know if you guys like Dave Chappelle. Have you seen the stand-up where he was talking about that?
I love Dave
If
Chappelle.
LeBron decided to transition, should it be allowed to play in the WNBA? He would break every record known to man. Would you agree? I mean, he would probably break all records. That would then be impossible, right, for a natural woman to even accomplish. Would you agree to that argument?
Right, but that's the way the sport is now. Someone comes into the sport and they just dominate. They're so much better than everybody else, and they dominate. It's not just if LeBron did it. It's a situation where every decade it happens, where somebody like a Michael Jordan comes into the league and they just tumble over everybody. Every other player is not going to get the accolades that person got. That's just how it is. That's
Right, but I think what
It's
he was saying is
insane.
even the woman version of Michael Jordan doesn't have a chance to really shine as bright because somebody else transitioned and just beat it that badly and scored that many points. You know what I mean? Set that bar incredibly high to the point where that woman version, who should be looked at as great, is not measuring up even more. You know what I mean? They set that bar so incredibly high it's unreachable.
I mean, I think there's always somebody in the sport that's better than you. I mean, that's just my thought on that one.
Yeah.
I wasn't terrible at sports, by the way.
I believe that. I'm not saying everybody is. It's just,
When you're a loser, it's good to, I'm just coming from a loser standpoint, Lucas and James. I'm telling you, I mean, I lost at a lot of sports. So it's like, well, there's always going to be somebody that's better than you,
Yeah. I mean, not always good. Let's see. Thing of female strength and power goes them at advantage. I don't think it's even necessary. Like I said, it's both sides. I mean, the transitioning either way, you're going to have somewhat of a disadvantage already. So it just depends how you look at it. And yes, I do agree. I think everybody deserves the right to be able to be equal and if they want to compete as male or female, if that's a possibility, and doing it safely and doing it fairly, I think is the main question. And that I'm not sure on, because I am not no scientist and I do not know enough about body muscle mass, skeletal muscle mass, or anything of that nature. Testosterone levels, estrogen levels, I don't know. That's not for me to say. That's a question that's for somebody with a degree somewhere, somebody that actually went to college and did something with their life. But yeah, no, I can't say that for sure.
Yeah, no, I can't see that happening, because if a male, what do you call it, transfers to female in
Right.
the boxing world, that's just not going to work.
Well,
That is a recipe. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. It's a little scarier for me that way.
I don't see any commission even signing off on that.
Yeah.
It's not even that point. You're not even going to find an opponent to present to the boxing commission.
Can you imagine if we did
it's a
that?
non-starter.
I mean, maybe.
Well, hey, Clarissa said she'll fight a man. So I mean, she's not transgender or anything, but like if she's saying that she'll fight a man, and people want to see that for real. Like they like, oh yeah, I want to see Clarissa beat some man, a man's ass. Hell yeah. Like
the question now is we're at the infancy of this, though. So there may come a point while we are all still covering the sport that somebody is maybe even just a celebrity that wants to take on fighting like a Jake Paul who has transitioned. Okay, so this may come
You
up.
had
You
to throw
never know.
Jake Paul in there, didn't you?
No, I just thought that was an easy reference because he kind of seemingly came out of nowhere. That's what I'm saying. Somebody that came out of nowhere and just all of a sudden in the boxing game. That's why I use Jake Paul.
Okay.
Not for any reasons like nefarious,
I
but
hear
yeah,
you.
that's
There
just
are
somebody that came out of
there
nowhere
are fighter safety concerns, and like
for
I
sure.
said, they should definitely it should be that way for every fight though.
I
There's
agree.
fighter safety. I mean, that's why we had the boxing commission stating, "Hey, we don't think that it's a good thing for you to fight Jake Paul. You shouldn't be fighting this amateur pedigreed boxer who's also a heavyweight." These things are considered. I think we have the fail safes. A lot of things are wrong with our sport, but a lot of things are correct with our sport.
I agree,
It's
and
only so far you're gonna get with boxing commissions.
it differs from commission here in Illinois. I know
Mhm.
we're a little bit more strict, which is a good and bad thing. That depends. Are you a promoter? Are you a fighter? Are you just a fan?
Right.
Right. So the
Mhm.
promoters, it's a headache because an 11-1 guy can't be fighting a 1-15 guy. They'll tell you no.
Mhm.
In Indiana, though, right over there, you can get away with it. So there's a difference. You know what I mean? It's good and it's bad, but I would like to see that at least every commission is able to stand up for it a little bit more, and especially in fighter safety. This is why there's such severe mismatches, why people
Mhm.
get hurt.
Right.
That should not be allowed. If you at least keep the competition somewhat close, I think
Mhm.
the boxing deaths would be less and less and less. But unfortunately, the business of boxing wins out over the sport, and that
Right.
puts lives in danger.
And
Oh,
to
no doubt,
be
no
honest
doubt.
with you, there are a lot of promoters that want the competitive fights. They don't want the mismatches because it's not helpful for what they're trying to do and building their brands and et cetera, et cetera. So um, I don't think that there would be a lot of mismatches when it comes to transgender stuff. To be honest.
I would hope not. But yeah, I mean, some promoters just want to get a win in there. They don't care how they do it because they know once you get about 17-0, you're usually worth about $500,000 in your next fight. So, and they'll milk it. So it happens. But I don't know. I think we've burnt this candle at both ends. Maybe once we hear a little bit more from the WBC, we can comment a little bit more. Like I said, keep up to date on all of our social media at Heavy Bag Boxing. Don't forget to check us out next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Y'all have a good night.